is my official Spotify artist page. And this is one of my songs. Except, this isn't my song. I didn't write it, and I sure as hell didn't upload it. Now you might be asking how this happened, or why I sound like this now, and we're gonna get into all that, because
all of this is so much worse than I thought it was going to be.
Spotify and these other streaming platforms just aren't paying attention.
My immediate reaction to seeing it on my profile was dread.
I never in a million years thought that it would have been that bad until I experienced it.
In this video, we'll take a look at how to get another artist's music taken down using bots, how to take away their revenue using royalty-free loops and samples, the world of playlist promotion scams, how to release fake collaborations, how to release music on artists' official verified profiles and impersonate them, and even a look at what I believe is going to be the next major scam facing independent artists, using readily available and accessible AI tools to quite literally become them. So, buckle up, buckaroos, because this one's gonna be a bloodbath. I'm sure that a lot of you watching this are independent music artists just like me, and I'm sure just like me in the last couple years you have had to deal with your own fair share of fake collaborations, fake songs being added to your profile, and a flood of promotion scam emails hitting your inbox. And I don't know about you, but I'm sick of this shit. So I decided to just go on down the rabbit hole here and try and figure out how all of this works. And my hope in making this video is that if it pleases my algorithmic overlords enough and does well, it will finally force these platforms to start making actual, meaningful changes to support the artists that they claim to love so much instead of just chortling investor and shareholder balls. We exist in a digital music economy where out of all the tracks on streaming services, in the last year, over half of them were played less than 10 times. So with those kinds of odds against us, what exactly is an artist to do to get a leg up these days? First off, we probably need a little bit of a history lesson here, because I think this is where the root of the problem starts. Back in the day, labels and streaming services had more direct pipelines to get artists on platforms like iTunes or Spotify. Now, with the death of the label-based industry and the rise of the independent music scene, digital distribution services have removed the traditional gatekeeping of a label-first industry, which means now anyone can upload a track, making it effectively impossible for platforms to vet each individual release. The absolute fire hose of easily accessible independent digital music distribution services has made it possible for independent artists to upload effectively unlimited music to streaming services for little to, in some cases, no cost whatsoever. And that brings us to the issue of the money. Platforms like Spotify and other major streaming services don't exactly pay out in the way you might think. Artists aren't actually paid out for the number of streams that they generate. Instead, most streaming services pay out of a sort of communal fund that is then distributed to artists and labels based off of the proportion of the total streams, with some labels and artists getting better deals than others. If all this sounds horribly confusing, it's because it's probably been designed to be. But think of it like this: your streams and your music and all the hard work you put in is your raffle ticket. And everybody else gets one too. Then everything gets divided up by the total proportion of streams that everyone generated. So a little bit for you over here, a little bit for you over here, a couple for you here, and now everyone's been paid. But I also forgot to mention that all the audiobooks count on top of this, so including that, now there's even less money in music than there ever has been before. Everything gets split up here and shuffled around, and everyone's happy and gets their Spotify Wrapped at the end of the year. But the problem is when some dickhead decides to come along and buy a couple million fake streams. And just like that, the actions of one single person have now reduced the odds of everyone else in the room being paid fairly. And it is this exact system that has directly incentivized the rise of bot-based streaming. And then we get into the music itself. In an algorithm-first streaming world, the reliance on metadata to categorize things like artists, genres, featured artists, albums, and more have made it pretty easy to game the system by exploiting the speed and convenience of digital music distribution with a little clever manipulation. And that brings us to the rotten core that all of this rests so comfortably on. There is a frightening lack of any meaningful industry-wide verification or secondary authorization process for any of this. Although some services offer things like the ability to get a verified checkmark to prove that the profile is really yours, the fundamental identity behind a song is solely based on the word and goodness of their hearts of whoever or whatever uploaded it. Awesome, right? That's just the tip of the iceberg. My legal counsel for this video has let me know it would be very smart of me to insert a quick disclaimer here to let you know that everything I'm about to show you how to do is very much a naughty, naughty no-no, and under no circumstances should you do it for yourself, even though everyone else seems to get away with it until they just don't anymore. This will probably get you banned from streaming as well as distribution. It's a bad idea. Please, for the love of God, do not do this yourself. That out of the way, let's go ahead and do all of it. I'm sure you've heard of botted streams, and they're a great example to start with here of just how fragile this entire ecosystem is. Okay, so picture this. You're an artist with your music freshly released on streaming platforms. You put in the legwork to do some promotion, and things take off a bit, and look at you go, little star. You're starting to get playlisted more and more. But one day, your music hits the wrong playlist. Somewhere, someone out there wanted to get their AI music streamed by bots to siphon some money off that sweet pro rata royalty pool, and needed a few legit artists on the playlist so that the list seems at least a little real and not entirely fake. Next thing you know, your music has now been taken down from streaming services because you got caught inflating your numbers with artificial plays. Boom. Case closed. So when this happens to an independent artist, what can you do about it exactly? Well, this is Ben Jordan, better known as the Flashbulb. He's been making and releasing music for decades. In one evening, nearly his entire discography was taken offline. This resulted in him not only losing a significant portion of his following, but also his income.
If you find yourself in this situation, it's pretty grim. I never in a million years thought that it would have been that bad until I experienced it. It's almost like when you go on Amazon and you see somebody saying, I wish I could give this 0 stars. Like, that's my sentiment. When I discovered that my music was taken down, I immediately reached out to TuneCore. I didn't get any recourse or communication until I had already not only contacted the CEO of TuneCore and had colleagues of mine also contacting her and driving her crazy, but the parent company of TuneCore finally poked and said, hey, are you going to deal with this or not? I would have had a different distributor distribute my music to DSPs, but come to find out, there's not really a great one currently. When CD Baby and TuneCore started out, you would pay per album per year, and it was really expensive. And after DistroKid came along, they had a very low monthly fee, and they just kind of did everything in the cheapest Walmart fashion that they could. And once that happened, pretty much every other distributor had to compete with it. And so they got rid of their customer support and they kind of put everything into an algorithm. And so that's sort of what happened and why everything is so impossible to deal with now when something does go wrong, why it's so hard to find a human being on the other end. So Spotify kind of pulls numbers out of the air and says, hey, well, we think that this person is using a botted playlist, or we think that this person is committing streaming fraud in some way. And then when I finally did get a response from somebody who made that decision, they claimed that they had evidence that they wouldn't show me the evidence, but they claimed that they had evidence that I was committing streaming fraud. When I looked at the data that Spotify gave me, which is a little bit more detailed than what you would see on your Spotify artist page, it was almost boring how predictable my music is listened to. It's just hills on days and times of days and regions and stuff. The only tip-off that they could have had would have maybe been IP addresses from people putting music on playlists. And that's obviously a very shoddy way of doing it. With other artists, I think it gets extremely obfuscated because at the time, and I assume still, DistroKid and a lot of these distributors, they offer playlist services. And you have things like Submit Hub, and you have all this stuff where people are encouraged, sometimes by the distributor, to put themselves in an ecosystem that's going to get them pulled down for botting. And I cannot stress enough to any artist out there to stay the heck away from these things, because that is just asking for it to happen, unfortunately.
But this isn't really a video about bots. I'm sure we're all familiar with those by now, given how many major artists and labels are constantly being accused of using them to artificially inflate their streaming numbers. Instead, there's a much darker side to this I wanted to talk about, thanks to the complete lack of enforcement and reasoning. In recent years, artists have had their songs or even entire catalogs removed as a part of botted playlists using their music. When services detect fraudulent streaming activity, they'll generally notify the distribution service, who will then notify the artist. The artist can respond to state their case, but it often comes down to whether or not whatever AI support rep you're talking to actually believes you. And that brings us to the darker side of the insane availability of cheap streaming bot services. If there's an artist you just can't stand for whatever reason, you could add their music to a botted playlist that you created. Then report that playlist for using bots. Once the distribution services and streaming services get notified, you can all but guarantee that their music will then be taken down for artificial streams. Mission accomplished. Many of these are publicly available on pretty legit looking websites with plenty of glowing testimonials from your favorite artists like Gemma. You remember Gemma, right? Yeah, you know, this lady. Remember? Oh, right. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of these promotional services available for any streaming platform or social media outlet right on the surface web, a quick Google search away. You don't even have to fire up the old Tor to find them. And at the swipe of a credit card, you too can now become a botted playlist god, taking down whoever you want with you along for the ride. And I think this shows one of the most glaring flaws in the entire system. Artists can now be punished or taken advantage of by the actions of a third party without any knowledge or consent on their part. And I know. Great. Content ID is our loved friend and hated mistress. The Content ID giveth and the Content ID spanketh thee on the butt, with often completely arbitrary and nonsensical enforcement to protect these gigantic mega corporations from problems of their own design. It's no secret that many artists these days use royalty-free sounds and loops from popular services like Splice, Loopmasters, Noise, Cymatics, Ghost Hack, Black Octopus, and tons of others. The problem here emerges when, well, tons of artists use royalty-free sounds and loops from popular services. And this is not just a problem with Content ID, this is a problem with the entire digital music ecosystem. This is an issue I've talked about a few times on the channel before, but there's a deeper layer to this that I think is worth examining if you want to start grifting some of that sweet AdSense revenue from independent music creators without an army of label lawyers to fight back. Depending on the type of music you listen to, you may have noticed a rise in what feels like a lot of very rushed stock music being put together that's about, I think, a minute long is the minimum for most digital distribution services. And this is likely people doing this exact scam. By putting the music out there and setting the release date back to something relatively believable, they can now start Content IDing anyone else who decided to use those same loops. Just to show you how much of a honeypot this whole scam is and how incredibly common these loops are, why don't we take a look at a couple samples from the most popular royalty-free sample services and see if we can use our handy-dandy information rectangle here to spot them out in the wild. All right, first up we've got Cymatics Serenity Guitar Loops. Let's give it a shot and see how we do. Already got a match. Done. Busted. All right, Splice, you're up. Let's see. Let's go to sounds. Let's just search by like the most popular loops. I guess we'll do vocals. and we'll sort by the most popular. And there it is already. All right, let's see how we do. Take it away. Boom. Done. Got it already. All right, last up, Loop Masters. How about this one's on sale? All right, let's go. Got another one. After listening to some of the matches I found, I can't play them here, obviously. It's interesting to me to see how many of them use the loops exactly as is with no modifications whatsoever, which is what makes this whole scam particularly devious. To show you just how easy this is to do and get away with, why don't we just set up our own little content ID trap? Let's find some random samples, something from a free sample pack, one you don't even have to pay for. Okay, sure, let's see what we got. Sure, 142 beats a minute. You got it. Let's grab ourselves a quick bass line. Sure, whatever. Let's go all in. Let's add a synth as well. Sure, and then maybe just a couple other random synth lines. Something like that ought to do nicely. And you know, let's mix it up a bit. Let's grab something else out of a different pack and throw it on top. Sure, I think that's in the same key. Let's toss that on top. Make sure everybody fits together. Loop everything out a couple times. Let's just make sure we fit our 1 minute minimum. I think that should do it. All right, and just like that, I've now created my own content ID time bomb. Okay, out of my own curiosity, I am just dying to know if we can get a match for this right off the bat. Let's give it a shot, shall we? Oh, Jesus Christ. Now our grand scheme can begin. By creating an account with a service like Splice, you can quickly go to the most popular sample packs on the service and slap them together wholesale to make your very own Content ID goldmine. By then distributing this track with a digital distribution service, you can check the box to enable Content ID and watch the matches start rolling in. And if you're a little clever with the date you use, you can submit claims for any song released after that date because Content ID doesn't care. Now you might be asking, what is preventing you from doing this exactly, given that this is a pretty clear violation of the terms of service of all of the platforms involved? Well, when you decide to upload your song and check the magic Content ID checkbox, you are then presented with a very strongly worded page with a couple extra checkboxes you can simply click with no verification or secondary checks applied to the music itself whatsoever. So you go along on your merry way. There is nothing meaningful preventing anyone from doing this, and I think this is why in recent years we've seen such a huge uptick in people taking advantage of a clearly broken system to just scrape a couple pennies off the bottom of the barrel from independent artists who just want to make and release and share their music using these services that claim to be by artists for artists. It's basically the equivalent of someone taking a stock photo, adding a watermark, and then copyright claiming anyone who happens to use that stock photo. Pretty neat stuff, huh? As we all know, there's really only one thing that artists want, and that's money for nothing and chicks for free. I know we've already talked about bots and botted playlists, but there's another side to this coin that's becoming more common and sophisticated and seems to be most prevalent on Spotify thanks to its incredible market share in streaming. As I'm sure any independent artist watching this with even a small following can attest, there is not exactly a shortage of these stupid cold pitch emails from these promotion services wanting to help you boost your album or single and really take things up to the next level. Many of these services keep their wording carefully vague, offering things like targeted playlisting and high engagement campaigns, where they're able to get you a special deal with a high following playlist to add your tracks in exchange for, of course, a one-time special fee as part of a limited time offer because they really just want to push your music out there, man. In looking at these playlists, on the surface, they'll often appear pretty legitimate with a reasonable or sometimes substantial following and tracks from artists that appear to have a good amount of streams. But there's always one dirty little secret they conveniently forget to mention. Literally anyone can make a Spotify playlist. One of the biggest contributors to this scene, if you want to call their work contributing, is Soids, which formerly went under the name Chartmob and then Shong.live, and now for some reason Soids, but it's actually Sours. They position themselves as an AI-targeted algorithmic streaming platform promotion service. Their website, at first glance, looks pretty okay, and of course it's packed with incredible heartfelt testimonials.
Yo, what's Gucci? It's your boy, your mom's celebrity crush, Evanson Kyle. Let's listen to him on the radio, as seen on the silver screen.
As we've already seen, services like these are not only completely pointless thanks to distributors and streaming services cracking down on anything they even remotely deem as suspicious in order to not cut into the shareholders' payday, but also a great way to get your music banished from the platforms forever. Services like these are also notorious for adding artists to their playlist in order to try and get their attention from a boost in their streams, to then get the artist to want to reach out to them to then pay for these incredible promotional services. And of course, it's always a giant bag of bullshit. Now, everything we've talked about in this video up until now, it's become pretty common, and it's annoying, but there are a couple more recent developments in the streaming scam world that are infinitely more fucked up. Have you ever been notified that your favorite artist uploaded a new song and then you go to stream it and it just doesn't quite sound right? In recent years, there's been an incredible rise and even some pretty high-profile cases of artists being added as collaborators to productions that they had absolutely nothing to do with. And this is all thanks to people trying to take advantage of streaming platform algorithms. Collaborations. It's the age-old tale in art wherein two artists come together to mix and share their spiritual output for the betterment of the world. But what if I told you there's a way to do it without all the fluid mixing and shame, with just a couple clever strokes of the old keyboard? Most digital distribution platforms have a feature for releasing collaborations with pretty simple tools to credit the artists that were involved. After uploading your track, you can add your collaborators as a featured artist, and away you go. Generally, these services also feature tools to split the revenue between the artists, with some offering percentage splits of down to 0% for the featured artists. So, by uploading a song and tagging a popular artist, these scammers get their songs put on the release radar of anyone following or interested in the artist that was tagged, in an attempt to either promote their music or just quickly cash in on the royalty revenue while the streams from thousands or even millions of fans roll in while no one is the wiser. I know all this seems a little far-fetched and just like general alarmist YouTuber bullshit, but it's really easy to do. Let's take a look. I would also like to take a moment just to preface this by saying this was all done with a brand new account that was set up with completely fake information. I even had my VPN set to a country I have never been to in my life in order to try to give them every possible chance to not let this work. Of course, once my credit card was accepted though, away we went. I decided to upload my music and, oh man, I've got to verify my things real quick. Let's do that once more. Let me tell you, it's a good thing there's not an easy way to fake a phone number or something like that. After that, I decided, you know what the heck, I'm feeling a little zany, let's come up with a cool name. And of course, I had to go with the Good Reverend. Every collaboration deserves some special artwork, so I really poured my heart and soul into something. Back on the old service, needed to add a name, came up with something that should be alright. Then I just needed to add my featured artist, and this one is featuring me. Music and lyrics, whoever, don't care. Now I need to map my artist, and of course it filled it out for me to make sure it was going to the right page. Now we just have to very much not lie and check the right checkboxes, and away we go. Of course, before we can actually upload anything though, we hit yet another paywall to make our music sound even more incredible. I decided to skip that this time around though. And just like that, we were done. And I shit you not, this was up on my Spotify page in less than, I believe, 7 hours. So, you might be asking what happens when someone adds you as a collaborator, and well, it's kind of a whole lot of nothing. In researching for this video, I couldn't find any distribution service that had any kind of secondary approval process for featured artists beyond, in some cases, asking for maybe an email, meaning your next release radar hit is just out there waiting for you to enter a name until someone else actually catches on. This on its own sucks, but that's just half the equation here, because when it comes to getting these fake collaborations removed, it's an absolute nightmare. Not only do you have to fill out a bunch of forms with streaming services and the distribution service that released the fraudulent collab, you have to then wait weeks, or in some cases, like with Apple Music, months for these fake things to get taken off your official profiles. And there is no world in which that needs to be the case. That is absolutely ridiculous. But boy, we're just getting started. If you've used any major streaming service in the last 5 years or so, you've probably encountered a case of seeing your favorite artist upload an album or a track, and you go to listen to it and it's just a bunch of AI garbage that someone somehow uploaded to their profile as them. What blows my mind about all this is not only how stupidly easy it is to do, but how disgustingly common it's become for small independent artists to find this stuff put on their profiles and be forced to figure out how to deal with it. This is Ember. She's a young artist who's been making music for only a couple of years. And recently, she found herself unfortunately needing to deal with AI-generated music uploaded to all of her official streaming platforms. And sadly, not being an established artist, she had no one in her corner to fight for her when it happened.
I don't feel that it's accessible for me as a smaller artist to protect my work, to protect my brand, my image. My immediate reaction to seeing it on my profile was dread. I have not released music in over 2.5 years now, I think, and trying to direct traffic to an upcoming album, I did not want AI music to be the thing people coming in are seeing, because like at that point my reels, I started to have like numbers in the thousands for views, which I'd never had before, and so I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't want people to see that. It's always stuck out to me that like while trying to distribute through CD Baby, which was my main distributor these past few years, you know, you can choose from the list of artists under, you know, who is you. I am not able to find my profile typically, and I always have to put in like a ticket because Ember is a common name and I'm a smaller artist. But I could easily click any other one of those profiles and it would probably get distributed. The barrier of entry is way too low. Like there needs to be some kind of verification. I didn't get any kind of notification when this happened. When I saw it, I definitely felt helpless to it, because in my experience with CD Baby support, I was unsure that they would take the necessary action, and I was right. Their response to me like a few days later was, this may take up to 6 months to resolve across all of your platforms. I don't use any of the popular services for loops and whatnot. I just get some random drum packs off of Reddit. I don't use Splice or Loop Cloud or anything. I've never used promotion services like Subit Hub, Playlist Push, all of that. I've never done that. This album, Silver Tongue, that I've been working on for basically the past 2.5 years on and off, I've had to shelve because of AI slop getting added to my profile that made me want to switch distribution, and distribution, you know, takes 2 to 4 weeks to inspect your music, and that is a whole new waiting period that I have to go through because I'm not going to deal with the bullshit that CD Baby is making me go through. I don't want to risk that AI slop being added to my profile after releasing something that hopefully will bring more traffic to my profile. I don't want to be targeted in that way. I don't want, you know, any mistakes to pop up there. I'm just going to go with what I think is the more reliable option at this point.
This has got to be one of the most just insane streaming scams out there. Not just because of how needlessly compromised digital distribution is, but because of how ridiculously easy it is to do. For example, using my handy-dandy brand new account, I decided to see if I could upload music to my profile as me. I was a little worried I would have to find my Spotify URI by copying the super secure code after the part of the artist URL of Spotify, but it was actually automatically there for me. Every album needs good artwork though, and once again I poured my absolute heart and soul into something truly, absolutely beautiful. With that out of the way, why not add just one more step to see if there's any reason that this can be stopped? Now we just have to fill out the correct information for who wrote the song. We scroll down to the bottom, pass a couple more upsell opportunities, and then check the right boxes to make sure everything is totally 100% legit. And we're off to the races. Of course, no music is complete without yet another upsell opportunity. Once again, I decided to decline. I figured my own work was probably good enough, and I was dying to see if this would actually end up on my verified artist page. We get the fun little check mark, and now we wait. And just like that, there it was. And keep in mind, I could have filled this out with literally anyone else's information. As I'm sure you've put together by now, it doesn't exactly take a rocket surgeon to figure out how to fill all of this in. And the most troubling aspect of it is there's really no secondary authentication or verification process for any of it. And yeah, I know. All of this sounds absolutely insane, and it's because it's simple but complicated. To try and make a bit more sense of it, I called up my friend Crystal, who you may know as Top Music Attorney. She's a law firm owner and specializes in entertainment law, and I figured I would get her to weigh in on why the hell any of this is even a thing to begin with.
In the realm of being a law firm owner and whether we deal with fake songs, infringers who are distributing and pretending, essentially identity theft, the answer is yes. For many years, we have dealt with this in the framework of just trademark infringement. But now what's happening is that, especially in the last few months, we have seen an absolute uptick in fraudsters using AI, because now it is just a matter of a few prompts to generate an endless amount of music. In the realm of maybe why independent artists are being targeted right now, maybe it's because there's a little less oversight. There's two companies in any one of these situations that come up with fake artists, fake music, right? It's going to be the actual music platform. So let's pretend it's Spotify. And then there's the actual music distributor, right? So both are engaged and doing takedowns and involved. Music distributors, starting with them, they have a tendency to say, we're hands off. We're not going to get involved with this because it's a legal question. And then on the flip side, well, Spotify and these other streaming platforms just aren't paying attention. But now you have trademark infringement and actual identity theft. And how to defend yourself from the fakesters, right? If this happens to you, which is you go and get a federal trademark. Very important. That little piece of paper, which has this registration number on it, allows you to go and use all these automated systems with music platforms. So meaning, if someone pops up pretending to be you and you have that piece of paper, you get to file a takedown. And it's very aggressive, it's very fast. And so it's one of the best ways to protect your brand, your name, and, well, your music. So if you're someone who's kind of new on if you find someone who's infringing, document it. Very important. Document it because people change, they pop on and off of platforms. But here's your little tip. Figure out where they're based. Because in strategizing whether you want to go get that federal trademark to deal with this infringer, it actually matters where they are geographically. In the general landscape of the future of music and digital service providers, I think a couple of things will happen and have to happen if we don't want the bad stuff to keep happening. But now what you're talking about is, what about all the fraudsters? Well, in order to deal with that, and if Spotify doesn't want to lose all of its independent artists, it needs to have a relationship with the music distributors, where music distributors are doing a better job. They're, at this point, one of the only things that can stop fraudsters from actually getting the infringing identity theft, use of the name, and sometimes even music onto the streaming platforms. But, it's up for conversation. Is it Spotify? Is it Amazon Music that should be doing this monitoring? And if so, what does that look like?
This is something that's becoming increasingly common thanks to the slop wave of AI garbage infesting every corner of the internet. And with the lack of verification and the ease and access of digital music distribution, artists now face a pretty bleak reality where even their official streaming profiles are effectively up for sale for as little as $20. I am honestly struggling to put into words how deeply angry this makes me. This was all done from a brand new account that was set up with completely fake information, uploading fake music to my verified artist profile in the same day in both cases. This was all done from an account that is in no way related to my own account with this same distribution service. I cannot understand how this is okay and why this is even possible. I don't know what to say here. I really don't, other than I hope the $44.99 was worth it. I really do. All of this culminates nicely, if you want to phrase it that way, into what I think is the next major scam targeting independent musicians online. Not just impersonating them, but using readily available tools and the loopholes we've explored in this video to quite literally become them. This is already happening, and it's starting to happen more and more. A lot of major DAWs, or digital audio workstations, which are the programs that musicians use to make music, have started to integrate AI-based stem separation features. This allows you to import a song, isolate the individual parts, and then play with them separately without needing to get the original stems or parts from the original producer. This actually allows for some good things, like audio restoration or remixing, extracting and flipping samples, or other more creative applications that musicians may want to use. But, thanks to the advent of AI technology, these same tools that musicians use to make music can be used against them in some pretty despicable ways without any real meaningful protections in place. There are so many AI voice cloning services out there that exist as a shell to offer turnkey access to mostly open source models that can train off as little as a few minutes of audio training data. This means that by going to YouTube and using any of the millions of YouTube to MP3 converters, with a little bit of patience and some careful editing and a reasonably fast GPU, you too can become the Nickelback guy. And it really is that easy. This took me less than 30 minutes to do, which means anyone out there can open a DAW, separate the stems, create a data set, import that, train it locally, and create a clone of someone's voice, and then use that on anything that they decide to produce. And as far as I'm aware, none of these tools have any kind of content ID type checking system to make sure what you're importing is actually okay to import and start extracting stems from. So that's lovely. I'd love to show you in more detail how exactly all of this works, but UMG would probably ram the fat, veiny rod of Content ID down my throat just like they've done to Rick Beato for years. But, you know, UMG, if you're watching this, I think you have bigger things to worry about than independent music educators on YouTube. For instance,
look at this photograph. Every time I do, it makes me laugh. How did AI get this bad? And what the hell is on Beato's hand?
the big problem with a lot of this AI stuff is that Pandora's box is now open, and given that there are no shortage of AI voice cloning services out there shilled to you by every brain-dead review slop YouTuber on the planet, I am sure that this is about to become an absolute shit show for any independent artist in the future with a notable following. I know this video maybe comes across framing this all as a giant dystopian nightmare, and I'll just level with you here, that's because it kind of is. But here's my little ray of sunshine sprinkled on top for you. My hope with this video is that it opens a platform for discussion about the absolute insanity facing independent artists online, and it grows to such a point where distribution services and streaming services finally have to start addressing it and make meaningful changes to fix what is a clearly broken system and enforce actual meaningful consequences against those who decide to abuse it. If you're an independent artist and you want to do something about it, I would encourage you to share this part of the video with your distribution service so they can just answer one simple question. What the fuck is the deal here? This is all stuff that's been solved with an email notification about a change on your account, or an approval code texted to your phone, or a code you enter from an authenticator app to verify something that's happening. This exists in nearly every other space in every other industry. So what exactly is the problem here? Please explain that to me. Artists have a duty to protect their work, and I absolutely believe that you always should. And I think that as artists, we also have a duty to help newer artists who are coming up in this space to ensure that they're treated fairly by a system that actually provides meaningful protections against this kind of bullshit. And I don't know, if I want to end this video on anything, I guess it's just, please keep making music. It's good. It just is, and you should always do that. The force of human creative expression is only going to exist for such a small window in the grand scheme of everything. And I truly believe that it's always going to be a worse place without you playing your part in it. And I mean that. I really fucking do. This video spent I don't know, 3 months in the oven, and I think I've slept a combined total of about 10 hours in the last 3 days getting the edit ready to release. And I want to give a special thank you to Martin and True, who emailed me a little over a year ago and inspired this whole video. Needless to say, this video was a lot of work, and work that will probably get me in trouble with somebody, but if I'm starting fires, I ain't quitting until the whole thing burns. I'm the only person behind this channel, in case you haven't figured that out. I don't have a team, I don't have assistants for research, I don't have an editor or anything like that. And if you want to support my ability to make more videos like this, and my ability to make more free instrument libraries for everyone, you can consider becoming a patron. You can check out my instruments or courses or sample packs, and if all else, you can just go out there and have a great rest of your day. For now, I think I am going to go sleep for a week.